guys, welcome back. So today I'm out here shooting my PU Sniper rifle. The PU Sniper rifle was used by the Russians during the Second World War. These rifles were made in two different plants, the Tula plant and the Izhevsk plant. This is an Izhevsk rifle. So this is a rifle we're going to take a look at this afternoon. Let's get started. This is the Mosin Nagant 9130. This rifle is chambered in 7.62 by 54R. This was the standard infantry rifle of the Russian military during the Second World War. This rifle is also the basis for the PU Sniper rifle. This is the PU Sniper rifle. This rifle, again, is based on the 9130, but has a few key differences. First of all, you'll notice the scope sitting up on top of the rifle. That scope is mounted to the rifle via a scope mount that's added to the left-hand side of the receiver. The scope sets up pretty high over the top of the receiver, and you'll also notice that it has a downturned and extended bolt handle so it can clear the scope that sits on top of the rifle. Let's take a look at the standard Mosin Nagant bolt. You can see that it's a shorter bolt, and when it's in the opening position it points straight up so it wouldn't clear the scope. These rifles were pulled off the line, tested to make sure that they were within specs for sniper rifles, meaning they would test the bore diameter and other critical dimensions. If they passed those tests, they were assembled into sniper rifles. The Russians manufactured these rifles in two plants. There was the Tula plant and then the Izhevsk plant, and this is an Izhevsk rifle. Let's take a closer look at it. This rifle was assembled and brought into the United States by the Malat factory in Russia. Now, there are a number of rifles out on the market right now. There are real World War II sniper rifles, which command a premium price. There are replica rifles that are built on standard 9130s with reproduction scopes, reproduction sight mounts. And then there are rifles like this one. This one has all the period correct markings, has a 1942 manufactured scope, has a 1943 manufactured rifle. The serial number of the scope is stamped on the receiver of the rifle, which would indicate that it was a real sniper. That's exactly what they did when they manufactured them in World War II. However, this rifle is not a real PU sniper rifle. This rifle was assembled from original parts, but none of the parts really match. If you take a close look on the receiver, there's an overstamp just below the serial number of the scope. This may have been a sniper rifle originally, but that serial number of the original scope has been overstamped and restamped with the serial number of the scope that currently sits on it. You'll also notice, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's electric pencil marks on the side of it. That is the serial number of the rifle and the scope. This was done after the war, and it was a common thing for them to do when they manufactured these rifles for resale. The original mounts will have a stamped scope serial number in the mount itself. So although that this rifle is not a real PU sniper rifle, there's a good chance that it was originally a PU sniper rifle, but perhaps the parts were lost or whatever, I don't know. Another thing that leads me to believe that this is a rifle that was manufactured after the war is the fact that it has a replacement stock on it, and if you look closely, you can see the freshly cut wood that's relieved for the scope mount. If this were an authentic rifle, you would see dated wood. It wouldn't look freshly cut. It could have been just a replacement stock, I don't know, but when they replaced the stock, you'll also notice here on the butt plate, it has the proper serial number. The serial number matches the serial number that's found on the downturned bolt, and that serial number on the bolt matches the serial number on the receiver of the rifle up here. So this rifle is kind of hard to read. The downturned bolt apparently went originally with this rifle, which would make me think that it was a sniper at one point, but it's hard to tell with the stock being replaced. Shooting the PU Sniper rifle is surprisingly pleasant given the 7.62 by 54R chambering. The recoil is just like a standard 9130. The scope does set just a little bit high, so you'll notice when I shoot the rifle, I have a fairly high cheek weld. I don't have my face down against the stock like you would normally like to have with a bolt-action scoped rifle. However, I still find the rifle easy to shoot despite the fact that it has a very AK-like cheek weld, which seems to be something the Russians have been doing for decades, that having their optics mounted fairly high above their rifles. The rifle's action is really smooth. The bolt is easy to use. We found, we're out here shooting this PPU brass-cased ammo. This stuff cycles very nicely through the rifle. Some of the steel-cased ammo tends to stick just a little bit more, offers a little bit more resistance when you're operating the bolt. This brass case stuff works very smoothly in the rifle. It fires from a 5-shot magazine, just like the standard 9130, and has a fairly crisp trigger pull. The trigger pull is probably right around the 6.5–7 pound pull weight, has a very light, crisp release. I can't really say light at 7 pounds, but has a very crisp release, I should say. So it does surprise me when the gun goes off. It's fairly easy to shoot decent groups with this rifle. Speaking of groups, let's take a look at some groups that we can shoot with the rifle using the PPU and the Hornady match ammo. Downrange with Kilgore, who fired the PU Sniper rifle for the first time. This is his first group using the PPU ammunition. I just wanted to get Kilgore's input as to what he thinks about shooting the PPU Sniper rifle. Kilgore is an avid long-range shooter, so it's kind of valuable to have his input. So Kilgore, what did you think of the optics, first of all, the 3.5 power optics?
Optics were, considering the age of the optics there, appear to be pretty clear, pretty simple to use. The reticle it's pretty straightforward. It's a common European style reticle, but
with the post, he's talking about the post reticle, which we'll show you a picture of here really quick.
Right, and yeah, very simple to use. As far as using this as a long range weapon, it certainly would need more power to the scope, because I believe.
By long range, what would you think? 500 yards, you could see a man.
You can see a man at 500 yards, but if you want to do any kind of precision shooting, you certainly need the power. But to engage on human-sized targets, sure, you'd probably run that rifle out to about 800 yards, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And feel comfortable engaging human-sized targets.
What did you think of the trigger on the PU?
Trigger is a little heavy, but it's very smooth. It breaks clean. Right. Yeah, once again, considering the age of the weapon, it is definitely a nice weapon. Nice trigger.
You had some comments about the comb of the stock, how it sets in relationship to the scope.
Right, I think that has a lot to do with how we're set up right now. Shooting off the bench, you want to elevate the rifle a little bit so you can get it planted in your shoulder a little bit better. With the weapon sitting low, you tend to lean forward, and you have the butt stock of the weapon actually high in your shoulder, which after a few rounds down range can be kind of painful. Yeah,
if you're leaning into the rifle, hunched over like this, and letting it whack you on the top of the shoulder, it really does hurt with that metal butt plate. You heard me comment about that on the sneak preview video. Now, if you're standing up shooting the Mosin Nagant from the shooting position like this, or even a kneeling position where you're square with the buttstock, it doesn't hurt at all, it's just a subtle push. But for whatever reason, when you're leaning over, it definitely gives you a good wrap on the shoulder, which can be a bit distracting.
Sure, and it's got a very short comb on the back of the weapon, so it really doesn't fill up the shoulder. It's short.
The stock comb is kind of low. It sets low in relationship to the scope, so you find your head kind of up floating. You don't really have a solid cheek weld with the stock, right?
Correct.
All right, cool. We'll do some more shooting. We're back down at 100 yards after Kilgore fired a 5-shot group. This 5-shot group measures right at 2 inches. We found in quite a bit of shooting with the PU Sniper rifle that if you shoot a 3-shot group, it's pretty easy to get a 1-inch group out of the rifle. Once you start to fire 5 shots, it starts to open up. This is a group that I fired right before he fired his, and again, it's right at 2 inches. If you go ahead and fire a 10-shot group, this is what you can expect. Now, this was with the Hornady match. The 2 groups I just showed you were with PPU ammo. So the Hornady match, really, the performance accuracy-wise is very similar to the PPU. With the Hornady match, if you take a look at this group, this measures it right about 2 inches, a little 2 1/4 inches. We throw in this flyer, and that's over 3 inches. But 9 rounds land within just a little over 2 inches. So really, the rifle, if you shoot more than 3-shot groups, I don't know if it's the barrels heating up. It's definitely not the shooters. We've confirmed through firing a number of groups out here this afternoon that it's definitely the rifle that's stringing the shots. The warmer the barrel gets, apparently, the more those groups start to open up. If you fire a 3-shot group and fire it on a cold barrel, you can average about a 1-inch group. But as we all know, a 3-shot group really doesn't count. You have to look at 5-shot or 10-shot groups to get a good average of how a rifle really shoots. So we're looking at about 2 inches with the rifle, shooting anything over 3 shots. The scope on the PU Sniper rifle is fairly conventional. You have an elevation adjustment here on the top, and you have windage adjustment here on the left-hand side of the body. Now this is a little bit different for us here in the United States, or for Western shooters, or even for modern scopes. Typically your parallax adjustment is on the left-hand side, and your windage is on the right-hand side. The adjustments on the scope towers don't have detents or clicks. When you turn the knob, it's just friction resistance. You don't hear anything or feel anything. It has hash marks for the elevation. Has 0 all the way up to 1,300 meters. When you zero the rifle, you can then dial it to 1 for 100 meters, shoot at 100 meters, and then in theory it has a bullet drop compensator. As you know the distance, you just turn that distance into this elevation and it'll automatically compensate. Again, with the windage, you don't have detents or clicks, you just have windage adjustment. The scope mount itself has 2 bands. You have a single screw in the front and 2 screws in the rear holding the scope in the forward position, and this is normal. The mount itself is zeroed at the factory. They have to, when they mount this scope mount to the rifle, they will have to either add or remove material to the base to get the windage set. Then you have fine adjustments, or I'm sorry, gross adjustments that you can make with screws to the elevation. So you can set it to 100 meters, for example, get it high in the reticle, and I'll explain that here in a second. And then you can lock it down and the rifle's zeroed. You can remove this scope mount, put it back on, it should maintain at 0. Let's talk a little bit about the reticle. The reticle has a simple post reticle. You have bars on either side, and then you just have a simple post with a point in the center of the reticle. When you make adjustments to the scope, the reticle moves within the field of view. So if you're dialing in elevation, if you're bringing the point of impact up, you'll notice that the post or the whole reticle moves down as you dial in elevation. The same is true of the windage. If you're trying to dial in some right dope, you'll see the reticle move to the left as you dial in the windage adjustment to the scope. So it is a little bit different. And it's also important that you get your rifle zeroed for that reason. When you sit down at a perfect 0 at 100 yards, you don't want your reticle off left and high. You want it centered, and you want to be able to dial in your elevation. The scope has a 3.5 magnification, and it is a fairly clear optic. I don't have a problem at 100 yards seeing the bullet holes with this glass. And again, this is an original 1942 scope. One of the neat things about the PU Sniper rifle, and another reason why the scope's set so high, is because you're able to get a proper sight picture with your iron sights even with the scope mounted. You don't need to use the optics. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at the PU Sniper rifle. The PU Sniper rifle was in use throughout World War II, and it was in service until 1963 when it was replaced by the SVD Dragunov, which also chambers the 7.62 by 54R cartridge. This rifle I'm pretty sure is a reproduction. It may or may not be built on an original sniper rifle. I can't really confirm that. There's a number of these on the market. There's a lot of reproductions, or what some folks would consider fakes, and there are a handful of authentic snipers. This rifle was purchased from IO Inc. I don't see them on their website anymore, so I don't know that they're still available, but when they were available, you could expect to pay around $500 for a rifle like this one. Some of the knockoffs can go for less than that, and typically a real sniper will go for more than that, up to $700 or more. But you do want to be careful when buying one, especially if you're going into the transaction assuming that you're getting an authentic sniper. There's so many reproductions out there and so many forgeries, you really don't know what you're going to get unless you know what you're shopping for. If you guys have any questions about this rifle, you can ask those questions on our Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/military arms. As always, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for the subs. We'll talk to you guys soon.